Good evening, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Eric White. Some of you probably know me as son of Frank. Some of you may not have met Frank. My father actually is a turner that's been part of the group since the 90s. Tonight I'm going to do a demo on box making. I've got a few examples here. There's a few, basically lidded, round piece. This one has a double lid in this case, so there's a lid on the outside and a lid on the inside. This one for a lid actually has a top, spinning top as the lid. So there's a lot of different types of boxes that you can do. I brought in a variety. Tonight I'm just going to do a very small box. This is ambrosia maple and then just a keepsake piece. Some of these, if you make them well, some of them will have a real click, and so you can get a really nice tight fit on those. Some of them you want a looser fit, particularly if you're making some that have a finial on the top. I'm going to make one, I hope, that will have a relatively tight fit. How many of you have made boxes before? Quite a few. And I saw several boxes that are over here that are really nicely done. Just a quick question. How many of you, when you're hollowing out your box, use something like a Forstner bit? Guilty? You don't have to, it's not a problem. It's not guilty. How many of you use a box scraper for doing it? Quite a few. How many of you use spindle gouge and your skew? Quite a few. So I'm going to demonstrate tonight how to use your spindle gouge and your skew on box making. Typically, the first thing that I recommend in doing this is to sketch out your piece. I don't know if this is, you can see. So we're just going to be doing a small box. So we're going to have a small rounded top. We're going to have straight edges on the body for this. On each end, we're going to be cutting so that you can hold the piece. So we're going to set that up, and I've already put together just a small piece of ambrosia maple for this demo. And please feel free, if as we're going along, if you have some questions. I've already rounded this piece so that it's ready. But the first thing that we're going to actually do, we're going to create just a small tenon. That's the word I was looking for. Put this in. Now, with box making and actually with any turning, one of the keys is going to be speed. Typically, when I'm doing box making, I'll usually have the speed somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500, really increasing it quite a bit. So right now we're at about 2,200. And I'm just going to create a small tenon. I've already got some here, but so this has a tenon on each side. And I'm going to mark out where I want the top to be, roughly a little above halfway, mark there. And I think for safety purposes, normally I wouldn't do this, but I think for this, we will move this down the tailstock just in case things fly. I don't want to do any damage to anybody. Oops. We're going to use a small parting tool, thin kerf parting tool. Which will get smoking pretty fast. Do you like that? Smoking. One thing about this tool that you want to pay attention to, and this is much higher than I'm used to, but
Eric, that's getting pretty smoky.
okay. I'll pause there for a second. We'll let it cool down for a little bit. For those of you that have used the thin kerf, one of the things that many people wonder about is how to sharpen these. So a technique that I was taught actually is on the grinder. You want to sharpen this end on the grinder, and then take sandpaper and run it across the sandpaper this way, and then sandpaper on each side, and that will keep it relatively clean, because it's going to pick up with this. It's going to pick up a lot of carbon, get dirty pretty quickly. I should have brought a little saw on this so we could get this, but hopefully this will be pretty quick. Cool for a second. There we go. So we have, this will be the cap, the top for the piece. This will be the body. Each has a tenon, so we'll be able to fit the body onto the chuck. Let me do this. So one of the first things I'm going to do actually is just clean that. Clean the lid, just using my skew. A little bit here. Get rid of some of that burning. Some of this one. And then I'm going to turn, and for this I'm going to be using the gouge to really scoop out the wood from here. But instead of going what is traditionally straight in this way, we're going to actually almost do it like an ice cream scoop. So for me, on this, I like to position the tool rest slightly above, or have the tool slightly above center, so that we're coming in, and I want to get rid of that. So this is always one of the challenges of catching yourself. And it's really good to think of it almost like you're scooping ice cream. Ice cream. So we're going to come in really close to center with the point, and then it's going to be a drill in and start to twist the tool and push out. So it's really very much like a scooping motion. And typically I'll try to get a little bit to the right of center. So I'm drilling in, start to twist the tool, and pulling it out. So if you can see the hollowing there. So this is allowing, you're actually going with the grain of the wood. So we've oriented this, instead of cutting into side grain, which you're normally doing, this is end grain that we're cutting. So the grains, if you're cutting in, you're going to get a lot of rough, uneven cut here. This is actually going with the grain itself. And the thing that I'm trying to do is just a little bit to the right. Catch it, push it in. Now, one of the things that's kind of funny with this is particularly when you're cutting into wood that is really dry, you can actually feel the shavings are really hot as it's coming along.
Can you tell us the cut on that end of that tool?
Sure.
On the tool.
Oh, on the tool? Sure. So about a 35-degree angle on the tool. And I'll come back in and just try to clean this up a little bit. So I've hollowed this out. One way to judge, yes.
So if you had reverse, could you then come from the other side?
So if I went in this way, yeah. So that was the part of the question. Is you're trying to go with the grain of the wood. If I'm going this way, I'm pushing against the grain of the wood.
But with the reverse, wouldn't you be going with the grain?
You're saying reverse the lathe?
The lathe is running in reverse.
If the lathe's running in reverse, is that what you're saying? So the lathe's running in reverse, and I try to push this way. So I'm gonna from the center and go out. I've never done that. I haven't seen that done. Anybody seen that done? Richard Graffin does that. I know on my lathe, one of the things that I would be cautious about is, that's the way that the chuck is threaded on. So
Set screw.
you'd have to set it in. I found this is pretty easy. Once you get that basic motion down. But I would never tell Richard Raffin that that's something that I'd want to learn. One good way to, I'm going to judge the depth, take a look at that, and I'm right about where I want to be. I might take a little bit more here, but what I really want to do is clean that up, I think, and I'll use the round scraper to just clean that up. And as I said before, we're going to have a rounded top. So I'm just going to use that. So I've got a concave in there. Now what I need to do is actually turn basically the mortise for the tenon that's going to fit on here. So I'm going to do that with the skew, just going pretty much straight in and nibbling away for a little bit until I get to the area that I want to. So I'm just taking the skew almost on center, pulling it in, pushing it in. And really just sort of eyeballing the depth that I want to go to. May take a little bit deeper. So, so for the most part, at this point, I'm at a point where the top is can come off, and I'll put the body on. So I've got just a rounded body with a shoulder right here where I can fit the tenon that will go on there. So the first thing I'm going to do again is clean that the face there. And really just using the skew as a scraper to go across. Want to get a rough sense, pretty done size. So this part, there's a couple different ways that we can do this. Oftentimes we'll use dividers, get a rough sense of the inside dimensions here. It's not going to have to take too much there. I can put a mark on there, but oftentimes I find that you can roughly guess. I'm not going to make a full cut for the tenon at this point. I want to get a rough idea. Oops, I've gone a little bit too far, but now I am going to cut down for So one of the things that I'm looking at is this is going to be a little bit of a loose fit, but we might put a finial on that to cover that. So normally I'd be a little bit more cautious about going in there and trying to make this fit a tighter fit, but for this demo. So once I've got this done, I'm going to create just a small angle in, giving it a little bit of an indentation, and that'll allow the top to rest much more comfortably on the piece. So we've got that, and then I'm going to give a little bit of a rounding to the edge. Oops. Going to round over this edge just a little bit, and also the bottom edge. I should have done that on the top too, and that'll give the piece a chance to look. So whoops, we got a little bit far there too. Just going to take a little off here. Let's see if this will fit on the shoulder. There we go. So one thing I can do, or you can do, is take some tissue paper or something like that, put that on, and then tighten it, give it a tight fit right there. We've got that for our napkin, something along those lines. And we'll do that in a couple of minutes, but the first thing I'm going to do is actually hollow this body out. Now for this, we are going to do basically the exact same thing as we did before, but this body is going to have straight sides down. So first thing is hollowing out, same process. Get a little bit of a pushback. Let's see how deep we are at this point. We're about where we want to be. Now one thing, I'll pass these around just so you can see some different types of boxes, just to give you a sense, give a little bit of variety. That's one with the top. And really, I find that one of the things that's really fun about this is you can do all different types of decorations on the boxes. Sometimes the wood itself, like this with ambrosia maple, is really nice in itself. Sometimes it's great to decorate. So this time what I'm going to be doing again is using the skew to drive straight down and just creating that straight side. So the skew's actually acting very much like a scraper. Now for me, I actually learned how to turn boxes at the John Campbell school. Had a really good teacher, Phil Fuentes, down there. And spent a week. I don't know if any of you have gone down to the Campbell School. It's a really nice program down in North Carolina. And one of the next steps that we'll be taking actually will be to put the lid back on and first make sure the sides are all even. So I've hollowed out the inside. This has got a straight side. This is rounded at the top. There's a fit that's pretty tight. Got a little bit of a pop. One thing that's good to remember with the fit is that you're going to be putting finish on here. And if you have a really, really tight fit, you put the finish on, it won't fit anymore, or it'll stick, and you're sitting there trying to get that off. So you want to have just a little bit of a give, and you want to have that pop. So I would do some more sanding and finishing in there normally, but we're in pretty good shape there. So let's line this up.
Eric,
Yes.
earlier you said you were going to turn fast. Why?
The speed actually allows the cutting to happen much more cleanly. So getting really much more of a clean cut, and particularly with the size of these pieces, obviously the bigger the piece, you're going to slow the speed down. But for something this small,
It's only going to hurt if it pops off.
What's that?
It's only going to hurt if it pops off.
It's only going to hurt if it pops off. There are some things that you can do to help protect that, and I'm going to do something a little bit just from a safety standpoint. I'm going to bring the tailstock back on here just for finishing, but oftentimes, just having tissue or a napkin like that, it's going to hold it on there pretty tight. One thing that you can do, have these little cut-offs from pieces sometimes. I'll often use those. I'll often use these just if the piece isn't really holding that tight, and it just gives a little bit, rather than poking the hole directly in. And then you have to do some finishing at the end. But is that on there? So I'm going to round this top. And this is a point where you can actually add some sorts of decoration, other elements if you like. And here I might just add just a little designation there, a little bit here. And this I'd probably add, in this case, given the looseness of the fit, I might add a finial on here. This is a part where I might just add a little bit of a line. For the lid. Same thing on the body. Oops, we're getting some tear up there. Let me clean that up. Yeah, that looks. Now this is where I would finish with sanding, and if I was going to do carving, would take it off and do carving or do some painting or burning or any of those types of things. Um, or you could put it right on there and finish it. And this is always sometimes the big challenge. Oop. I might have it on there too tight. There we go.
Parting tool.
Parting tool. Yeah. Normally, the next step that you're going to be doing is actually finishing the bottom. This one I might. What I might do is just show you with another piece that is almost done, because this one I might do some sanding and finishing on at another time. Got this piece here, which is also ambrosia maple, and just needs to have the bottom finished. What we're going to do is using a waste block. Use a waste block to again create hopefully a tight finish there, or a tight seal. Got, that one fits pretty close actually. So again, using the skew, just gonna remove a little bit of wood here, hopefully get a tight fit. Yep. A little too loose again. We'll try this. This one's actually working, I think.
Would you ever consider using a coal jaw for this?
You could. You could use a coal jaw. Coal jaws have basically rubber points that you can adjust the fit, and it will hold it there. Again, from a safety standpoint, I'm just gonna do this again. Normally, I would not worry about it, but I don't want to have the piece fly off. Tend to use the coal jaws quite a bit for bowls and such. So really all I'm going to be doing is taking that tenon off. Much like you finish the bottom of a bowl. It's a little high still. Sounds like we've got liftoff. One of the things that I've also found is that you can, with this, use a more traditional cut. In this case, though, one of the things you want to be careful of is as you're pushing, you're also tending to push it off of the waste block. So if I didn't have this here and I was pushing and it was loose, it has more of a tendency to push the piece off. So one way you can combat that is actually just using a pull cut. And you're really just pushing the piece of wood or the cut into the piece of wood. And again, you can add some ornamentation to the bottom here. Oops. And I would keep that going. So until until that nib came off. So I won't do that from a time standpoint, but this gives you a sense of how you can finish that bottom. Any questions? Anybody awake?
I have one comment.
Yeah.
I know which I'm sure you do anyway. When I do the bottom of a box like that, it's slightly concave.
Yep.
So it sits flat.
Exactly. Really good point. And oftentimes I'll use, I've got a small 6-inch ruler that I keep on here, and I'll just put with the lathe stopped, put it across so you can see, is it concave, so it'll fit or sit well. What you don't want to have is that rocking, unless you've designed it so that you want it to rock. You want to make sure that it's got a little bit of a curve in.
How do you, give me tips for not going to the bottom of the box when you're finishing the bottom?
When you're finishing the bottom, so if I did it right, you saw that there was a couple times I was using my tool just to test how deep it was, and I was trying to go just a fraction, basically less than a quarter of it, probably an eighth of an inch above where I know the bottom is going to be.
Usually go through that.
You can do that. Certainly have done that. If you haven't done that, then you're probably not trying hard enough at one point or another. But yeah, there are certainly times, and then there are repairs that you can do if it's a box that you want to try to keep, much like the bottom of a bowl. But what's that?
Napkin ring.
Napkin ring. But usually, what I'm trying to do to make sure, I'll have the tool as I'm doing that hollowing. If it was on there, I'm just going to use this to measure the depth, put my thumb basically right on there, and then see how it lines up. And normally you can get pretty close. There's one that I've got here that I think I brought. This one here, if you hold it up to the light, you can actually see through it. Got really close there.
Called a kaleidoscope.
That's it. So hopefully this was another way of making boxes for some folks, or an opportunity to see ways of making boxes. And for me, these are oftentimes a good thing when I'm turning a bowl. You'll have the cut off waste pieces. Oftentimes I'll cut them up and use those as pieces for making boxes. Here's even some of the little ones can make a little box. So
Pocket pillboxes.
that's it. And I saw some really nice boxes over there that several people have made. So thank you, everyone.